Hey there, fair gamers, and welcome back. It's another Thursday evening. Thank you for joining me here for Fair Game Favorites. I'm Graham, and this week we're talking about staying sharp over the summer because it's a long few months before we get back to school, and you and your families might be feeling a little bit can we stay alert? Can we keep thinking about things? Can we keep learning? The answer is, of course, yes, you can. And I've assembled a couple of tips for keeping our brains alert and active over the summer, particularly for school-aged children. And then on top of that, I've got a couple of recommendations for you as well for games that you might want to pick up that you and your family are sure to love. But before I dig into all these different kinds of suggestions and things for you, I do have some exciting news because one of our first Fair Game events is coming up next weekend that has to do very much with this topic. So the long and the short of it is that we have a benefit event next weekend. This is June 18th through 20th, 2021, for Alzheimer's research through the Longest Day Alzheimer's Association and Gray Matters Games, which is a local Chicago-based company. Now, you might recognize Gray Matters Games because they have come up with a ton of stuff, and we've been recommending it for the past several years. If you have played the trivia game You Betcha, or the Game of Wolf, those are both Gray Matters games. They have a newer one called Office Decathlon that came out in the past couple of years, and this is really targeted for like break time at your work, right? It's a really clever concept here. So this is a game to check out. I don't want to dig into it right now, but Gray Matters Games is fantastic. They publish Root Beer Float Challenge, which is a game that I've recommended on stream before as well. And this time they are working with us to put on this Alzheimer's benefit. So we've got a lot of things going on all next weekend, including a silent auction that starts on Friday the 18th and is going to go through the 20th. If you're a winner at the end of the weekend, we'll let you know digitally. There's also Saturday is going to be the really big event, and that's specifically in Fair Game Downers Grove. There's going to be a lot of great sale opportunities, sort of one-day only prices that you can unlock through donations to the benefit itself, along with a lot of really cool events. We're going to have a couple of game designers there. We can play Root Beer Float Challenge with the people from Gray Matters Games who publish Root Beer Float Challenge. That's really cool. We're having folks from Fuzzy Logic, which is an escape room. They're going to come out and run us through a series of short-form puzzles that kids and adults alike will enjoy. One of the co-designers of the game Canvas, which is possibly one of the most beautiful games that we have in the store at all. Canvas is wonderful. It brings about color theory, and you create works of art by sliding cards inside of clear sleeves. This game is awesome, and you're going to get a chance to see this demoed by one of the designers. So definitely something to check out. Next weekend's going to be wonderful. So I've got a link in the description if you are interested in coming out to our Alzheimer's benefit. And we would love to see you there. Again, that is Saturday, June 19th at Fair Game Downers Grove. And we're working to raise money to help keep minds active. So again, that's what we're talking about tonight, is staying sharp over the summer. I've got a couple of tips for you and your families. You know, folks are going to be traveling, folks are going to be on the move. I wanted to come up with some stuff that was a good structured activity or was just something that you could slip in with your kids that you're working with over the summer to kind of keep them thinking about stuff. So first, let's talk about math. I think one of the most important things about math is that it always builds on itself, right? So as you go through the grade levels, you want to make sure that you have a pretty good fundamental understanding, because if you don't and that starts to slip, you start looking at pre-algebra and algebra maybe in junior high, and then you get to high school, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I lost this somewhere along the way, right? So one way that you can easily reinforce basic math skills with your kids is counting things in sets. And I know that that sounds very weird, like very abstract, but feel me out on this. Let's say you're packing for a vacation, right? And you are packing up socks with the kids. You're going to be gone for a week. You want them to bring 8 pairs of socks. So how many socks should they bring? Well, 8 pairs, right? But that's actually 16 socks. So hear me out on this. You walk your kids through this mental exercise, right? How many socks do we have? Well, we've got 16 socks, but they're in 8 sets of 2. Okay, well that's 8 times 2 is 16, right? You flip that on them maybe with a different set of objects, and now you're talking about, okay, well we've got 4 sets of 4 because maybe you've rearranged your socks into these different piles. So every pair of socks, that's 4 socks, and you have 4 sets of those 4 socks. Now 4 squared is 16. You can do that with French fries, and they'll roll your eyes at you, but you're sitting in McDonald's or whatever, and you're counting out French fries, and you say, okay, so there's 9 sets of 3 French fries. That's 27 French fries, right? Well, what if we rearrange that, and you've got 3 sets of 9 French fries? You're still doing your factors. You're able to review math in a very simple way just by inserting it into everyday life. Another thing that works really well with this, particularly with younger kids, even if you're just doing counting exercises, is that you're using physical objects to count. Too often, as a kid, you're looking at your math homework and you're like, I'm just trying to memorize what 4 times 8 is and that it's 32. Well, you can visualize and make this abstract concept concrete by actually laying out, here's your 4 whatevers. Here's your 4. I'm trying to think of something that 4 beach toys, right? And then here's another set of 4 beach toys. Now we've got 8 beach toys. And what if we make a square with all of our beach toys? Now we've got 4 rows, 4 columns. That's 16 beach toys. Now we're starting to get into multiplication. We're making it into measuring the area of a rectangle. Just finding ways to incorporate these everyday equations that we kind of do very passively into the day-to-day life of your school-age child is a really good way to reinforce those things. And I know I've talked a lot about factorials and things, so I'm going to go into my first game recommendation of the night, which is Prime Climb. And this is a very clever game that turns multiplication and addition and subtraction and division into a structured activity. This is a game that you're looking at probably half an hour or less. They recommend ages 10 and up on the box, but honestly, if you've got kids who are maybe they're in 3rd and 4th grade and they're learning their basics for multiplication or a division, that's really the target audience for this kind of game. So in Prime Climb, you've got this big old board here, and everyone starts at the 0 space. On your turn, you're going to roll 2 10-sided dice, and it's going to produce 2 numbers for you. Let's say we get a 3 and a 6. Now you can move forward along the board based on the equation that you're going to create from those 2 numbers. So, for example, 3 plus 6 is 9. So you can move up 9 spaces. Or 6 minus 3 is 3, so you can move up 3 spaces. Or 6 divided by 3 is 2, so you can move 2 spaces. Or 18. 3 times 6 is 18, so you can move up 18 spaces. You're going to be moving forwards and backwards along this spiral, trying to be the first person to get to the center. Aside from just math, there's an opportunity to land on the prime numbers, which are color-coded red. When you do, you get to draw a prime card, which is going to be some sort of event, and that event can spice things up. It could be good for you. It might also be bad. Maybe you hold on to it. You get to play it later. It's going to keep the game variable and make sure that replaying the game is very interesting. And then finally, the color coding on this is genius. Okay, so check it out. The low number prime numbers are all solid colors, right? So 2 is orange, 3 is green, 5 is blue. And then all the numbers that those are going to be factors of have those colors included on that number. So the number 30, for example, well, the factors of 30 is 2, 3, and 5. You multiply 2 times 3, that's 6, times 5 is 30. So 30 is going to be 1/3 blue, 1/3 orange, and 1/3 green. So now you're color coding your multiplication, which I think is a fascinating learning tool that is going to hammer home the concept of multiplication and stuff. Aside from that, it's just doing quick mental math, right? We see this all the time with the youth D&D program. Kids start off and they're trying to remember 9 plus 5 is 14. Okay, that's great. By the time you've played a couple rounds of Prime Climb, those really basic functions are going to be lightning quick. 6 plus 3 is 9. 1 plus 9 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10. This kind of stuff, you're going to get those reps in just from playing this game, and they're going to be masters at all these really basic equations, and they're going to be rewarded for their creative thinking. So Prime Climb is fantastic. I totally encourage you to check this one out, particularly if you've got a child who needs to practice their multiplication and division, or just their addition. I wouldn't go too much younger than like 3rd or 4th grade, unless it's something that they're already learning through school or classes or things, because they're going to get frustrated if they only know subtraction, for example, and then they're being asked to multiply 9 times 7, and they're, oh my gosh, I can't, So you don't want to put them into a frustrating situation. All that said, Prime Climb is fabulous. We love it. We love it. Huge fans. We love Prime Climb. All right, let's get back into the good stuff. We've talked enough about math. I want to go to the other side of the brain, reading. Reading is an incredibly important life skill that I think gets not swept under the rug, but just forgotten too often. How do you encourage your family as a whole, which could be kids, could be high schoolers, could be, your 24-year-old that you get to harass sometimes? Reading is, how do you encourage those members of your family to read? Well, one example is reading together, right? Make it sort of an event, make it an activity. Wednesday night is reading night. We're going to go out on the porch. We're going to let the breeze keep us cool, and we're each going to pick out a book. This is an event. It's reading time. It's structured, which kids love. Kids operate well. I don't know if they love structure, but they operate well with structure, right? You're going to set the example yourself because you've picked out something to read. Maybe you talk to them about what you've been reading. You get really excited. You're like, oh my gosh, let me tell you this Clive Cussler book. This is awesome. He's like an action hero. He's Dirk Pitt. He's on these boats. He's solving mysteries. He's saving the environment. What a man of action, right? You get them excited because you're excited and you're verbalizing that. And then they say, I want to read. I want to hear cool stories like that. So setting the example yourself, I think, is a really nice attitude to have. And then lastly, my favorite idea here is to set a reading goal for the summer. By the time school comes back around, we are going to get through this stack of books. And this does a lot of things. Obviously, you're creating a goal. You're creating a goal-centric mindset to try to achieve something. Every time you finish a book in that set, you can celebrate. You can throw a party. We're going to go out to ice cream. We're going to, you can have a sleepover with your friends. Something like that to commemorate the occasion so that they get to see what the process is like of tackling a big goal by breaking it down. There's a lot of really subtle life skills that I think come with that, where you can say, oh my gosh, we got a stack of 6 books here. I'm never going to get through 6 books. There's like 1 million words. How am I going to get through 1 million words? Well, 1 page at a time is the answer, right? So we're going to get through this one in 2 weeks, and then you think about, oh, you know what? This one's pretty small. I might be able to do this one in 1 week. And that's good because I also picked this other one. I picked Harry Potter and the Travelers from Marzipan, and that book is 400,000 pages long. So I'm going to need an extra time to get through that. And so now you're budgeting your time. We've got so many weeks to do that. project manager in the making over here. This is great. So there's a lot of subtle benefits to just creating, not even a schedule, just a reading goal. We're going to get through this stack. You're going to get through your stack. I'm going to get through my stack. And we're going to celebrate these things together, right? It's a great way to create kind of a family activity in that regard. So, reading comprehension is very important, and there is an attention to detail that comes along with that I think is a very important skill to be hammering home. And that comes into play because Fair Game, for a little while now, has been carrying a series of logic puzzle books called Perplexers. This is from a company called Mindware. We carry several Mindware games. I think Quirkle is one of our bigger Mindware games. There's several. You might have already bought one. But Perplexers is a series of books that create logic puzzles based on something real life. So, this is the kind of logic puzzle that maybe when I was a kid, we had like this weird grid. And it was like, you had the different properties that were all in the different columns and the different rows. And then you had to like cross out when they didn't apply anymore. And you're trying to, remove the available options logically in such a way that only the correct solution is apparent, if that makes sense. If that was confusing, that's because the old charts were confusing too. So these books are going to give you sort of a scenario. They're going to lay out the stipulations of the clues, and then they just list all the possible options. And so you're just going to go through and cross off the options that are no longer available. Once you've, kind of highlighted all the things that are not available, you circle the one that's correct, and the goal is to circle all of the correct pairings, the correct answers, etc. So now we have these wonderful Perplexers books that teach strategy, obviously logic, the critical reading, making sure you didn't forget details and that you can keep things orderly in your brain. We are talking about staying sharp over the summer, and I was in the middle of describing what I would call a nature walk. So, a nature hike scavenger hunt is specifically what I was talking about. So, this is a scavenger hunt that you can Google for, and it's essentially a series of things that you and your kids can look for while you're out enjoying Morton Arboretum, or Bemis Woods Forest Preserve, or Bussey Woods, or any number of wonderful nature-rich options that we have in the Chicago area. An advantage of this is that it gives your kids something to achieve, something to accomplish, some kind of structure for their hike, and something to look forward to. There's a lot to love about the world around us. I was a Boy Scout growing up, and I learned to appreciate nature, to feel at home with God in a natural environment. I felt very spiritual, and I just grew up with a healthy appreciation for nature and conserving our natural resources. And it all started because I took a lot of hikes as a kid. I was involved in Cub Scouts and things like that. And there's an opportunity to foster that kind of appreciation with your kids. And it starts with giving them something to think about. And you can do that through a nature hike scavenger hunt. In the interest of moving forward, in case my internet cuts out again, I also want to talk about science kits. I feel like this is a wonderful part of being a kid, is that sometimes you get a cool box and it's like, excavate these dinosaur bones, or make some soap or chemicals in your kitchen. And I know that some of these things are messy, sometimes they're a little bit expensive, but they're just, it's just so much different to see science in action, a chemical experiment happening firsthand, to feel yourself doing some sort of experiment and then going through the process of recording those results. It's so much different to do that hands-on than it just is to learn about, if you throw a Mentos in a Diet Pepsi, acid and base mix, and all of a sudden you got a volcano. And it's like, okay, well, that's great to see, but it's so much more impactful to actually do. So I would really encourage you to go out and find some of these science kits and put up with the mess. Cover your kitchen table in parchment paper, go outside, do it on the patio, do whatever you need to do, but give your kids the opportunity to experience science firsthand and feel it, because that is the condition in their heart where they're going to have an appreciation for that, regardless on if they want to go on to be a marine biologist or if they're totally fine starting their own business or being an accountant or becoming a firefighter or any of these other non-science related career paths. Science kits are not just for nerds. Science kits are not just for people who want to ultimately do science as a profession. There is a value there for observing your world and understanding how it operates. So that's my soapbox about science kits and things. I would love to hear your recommendations as well in the comments for kits that went over really well. This was we had an ant farm and it was awesome. Write that kind of stuff in the comments if you would. I haven't talked too much about the young kids, so I want to have a moment here to recommend to you two games that I think are going to be right up the youth's alley. One of them is a game called Tiny Polka Dot, which we've been carrying for several months here. Tiny Polka Dot is essentially a counting reinforcement game that we carry. So there's 16 games that come in this box, and they're all going to use these cards that have these dots on them, right? And the idea is that it's starting with those foundations of just counting and understanding conceptually what 10 is, because 10 is a word. So how do you, as a young child, translate 10 to actually meaning I have 10 fingers? There are 10 green beans still left on my plate that I'm playing with. And this is a great way to reinforce that. It's also going to ramp you up into basic arithmetic. A lot of like addition is going to be in this box, and logic. It makes a lot of sense to see the subtraction happen as opposed to just try to memorize that 7 minus 4 is 3, right? So a lot of these games are short. They're like 5, 10, 15-minute games. And so they recommend the age range for this is 3 to 8. I think 3 is good, and then probably your 8-year-old's going to breeze through this stuff. So really, I think this is good for kindergarten plus or minus 2 years, I think is really what you're looking at with Tiny Polka Dot. That one's fantastic. I also have a couple of other good games for the youth. Particularly, this is getting back to our logic and critical thinking side. This is called Mindo, and it's literally just called My First Logic Game, right? The box says it best here. This version of Mindo is all about cats. So I know someone out here is already excited about it. It says, before her nap, Bella wants to see all of her kitten friends. So you're going to have to turn and flip the double-sided tiles to perfectly match the puzzle card that's been given to you. So you go through the puzzle cards in order, trying to essentially assemble the puzzles to get these cats in the exact right positioning. So you're looking at color, you're looking at cat orientation, and you are memorizing which tiles go where, because you're going to have obviously repeats, right? So these are essentially dominoes, and it's like, well, I need a red, but I have access to a lot of reds, so which red is the right red? And kind of going through that. This kind of reminds me of Rush Hour. If you've ever played that puzzle game, that was a sort of a parking jam slider puzzle, which was genius, and I loved it as a kid, and it's been around forever. Mindo is like a step down from that to kind of build you up to that Rush Hour level. I wanted to see what they recommended. They say 5 and up on this box. I think smart 4-year-olds or 4-year-olds that are interested in sitting down to do a thing, I think are going to also enjoy Mindo. And I want to reiterate that there are several versions of this. So this is Mindo that talks about Bella. I don't know if they're just called the color version. So like this is the blue Mindo. I've got the red Mindo here as well, and this one has to all do with dogs. There's several different versions of this, and again, these are going to be play by yourself activities. it can be 5 or 10 minutes if they solve it really fast, or maybe they're really chomping at the bit and they want to go through several. So Mindo's fantastic, Tiny Polka Dot is fantastic, and both of these are going to be ideal for that 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old range, right? I have one last wave of tips for staying sharp over the summer. Let's use the alliteration here. And this has to do with the arts. So we've talked a lot about math, a lot about logic, a little bit about science and nature and such. But humans are creative people, and there's a lot of value in fostering that creativity, regardless on what vein that might take, because those are going to be enriching life activities. I don't want to go on a big soapbox about how wonderful the arts are, but I loved performing as a kid, and that influenced me in a lot of ways. So then I ended up doing a lot of sort of theater and music and other performing arts as I grew up. And ultimately, I thought it would be really cool to funnel that into some sort of performing art where maybe I could just be in front of people talking on a live stream about games and other things that I love. I think the arts can be very applicable to enriching life as a whole. So with that in mind, that's why the arts are important. And I wanted to throw some ideas at you. So you can always do crafts, right? Like being crafty is something that every babysitter wants to do with kids because it's such a good activity. And that's why every preschool in America gives you a craft to do like every day, so that then you have like a huge tub of like, here's what I did here's what the kids did when they were 5, and then the next kid when they're 5, here's their version of all the same activities. So aside from just finding crafts to do throughout the summer, I thought about the performing arts, and I thought it would be really cool, particularly for anyone who is itching for their kids to interact with other kids, to do a variety show, a talent show, if you will. Get together with the families in your playgroups, with the kids in your neighborhood, on your block, and we're going to put on a variety show for our folks. It's going to be maybe about an hour long or whatever, and every kid or group of kids is going to get together to put on a play that they write, and they're going to rehearse. They're going to get together with their instruments, and they're going to play. And they are going to choreograph a dance to their favorite song. And this is an opportunity for them to go through the process of taking an idea and executing it. Because being an idea person is great, but also finding ways to make those things happen is a critical life skill. And you can do that through a performing arts by putting on a variety show. So get together with some of your friends, some of your parent friends, and see if there's something that you can do with your kids. I know I just said that the talent show would be like an hour. In my head, I was envisioning like there was a lot of kids involved. Maybe start small. Maybe just 15 minutes, right? And that way, you also don't have to listen to the same song that they're dancing to like 40,000 times in the background. Keep your mind on the price. Just put the obnoxious music. If they're doing Baby Shark, holy smokes, let's hope that they don't have to rehearse it that much, right? My last creative thought had to do with creative writing, and I thought it'd be cool to get a journal going. At Fair Game, we sell the field notes, which are great little pocket journals. That might be a really good pickup for you and your kids. But these journals are opportunities for your kids to write creatively. Excuse me. There's two different ways you can do it. Maybe it's a road trip journal. Maybe it's a this is what I did today journal. And it could be based on what's going on in real life, and it's just getting them to reflect on their thoughts and the things that they are most excited about. Alternatively, you could make it more of a fictional exercise, and they go on this nature walk and they start thinking about this family of gnomes that live in the forest, and they collect mushrooms for a living, but one day an elk comes into the forest and starts bossing them around. How does that story end? right? Now we're talking about basic storytelling. Now we're talking about empathy from putting yourself in the shoes of another character. There's a lot that can come out of that, and that all started because you went outside on this nature walk and the kids got inspired. So I think journaling is a sleeper hit with your family that probably doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but this is a really good opportunity. And maybe the goal is we're going to fill up this journal by the end of the summer. That's our goal. And now we're talking about seeing projects through to the end, pacing yourself, thinking ahead. These kinds of activities that we talked about earlier in my first half of the stream when talking about the stack of books to get through. So, all right, well, fair game, folks. I think that is enough of me going on about fun ideas for you and your family to execute, to stay sharp over the summer. Before you go, I do want to remind you again one more time, next weekend, the main day being Saturday, June 19th, 2021, we are doing a fundraiser for the Longest Day Alzheimer's Association. We are partnering with our friends Gray Matters Games, which is a Chicago-based game company, to put on a fundraiser, and as part of that we've got a silent auction. We've got special Saturday only pricing on select products that you unlock through your generosity towards our fundraiser. You're going to have opportunities to play Root Beer Float Challenge with the people that publish Root Beer Float Challenge. You're going to get to meet one of the co-designers of Canvas, one of the most gorgeous games that we have in the store, and they're going to demo the game for you and teach you all about why it's a really fundamentally awesome game. And we talk about art, so we're incorporating color theory in with strategy. This is mind-bending. This is a game changer right here. And you're going to get the opportunity to see that kind of stuff at our fundraiser next weekend. So there is going to be a link in the description for this video to the page on our website that has all of the details if you're interested in getting involved with this wonderful opportunity next weekend. Thanks again for tuning in to Fair Game Favorites. I am Graham. I hope that there are some great ideas here that you really liked. I'd love to hear about how they go. Be sure to tag us when you talk about it on social media at Fair Game Store. And we will see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. for another episode of Fair Game Favorites. Now I got to turn off the stream for real instead of it turning it off for me.